M&Ms, you are in for a treat. In this episode, I interview pleasure and prosperity coach Jacqui Lane. We discuss feminine and masculine energy, how sex is directly correlated to your goals, the different types of orgasms, and holding space for your partner. This is a super juicy episode. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to tap into your power to manifest the happiness, success, and fulfillment that you desire. I am your host, Niajae, the Upper Limit Coach. I am here to dismantle your limiting beliefs and remove the blocks so you can confidently live your life's purpose, because life is meant to be abundant. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning into the Abundance Hack Show. Today I am joined by the beautiful Jacqui Lane. She is a pleasure and prosperity coach. Before we get into what that is and what she does, I want to ask you, what does abundance mean to you?
Okay. Abundance to me means freedom. It means more than enough. And to me, it's bliss. So yeah, those are the three words that kind of just came up to me when you asked me that. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love the word bliss. I feel like we don't say it enough. And maybe it's because we don't experience it enough.
Wow. Definitely. This is why I do what I do.
Yes. All right. So that's a perfect segue. Tell us what you do. Who is Jacqui Lane?
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a pleasure and prosperity mentor and healer. And I work with mainly female entrepreneurs, but all women really. And I help them to really create their most expressed and ecstatic relationship with their money, with their man, and in their sex life as well. Because I work with the masculine and feminine energy dynamic, and it applies to all three areas like beautifully. So my teachings cross over into each area. And so, yeah, I help women to really transform their relationship around money, men, and their sex life. And so that's why it's pleasure and prosperity. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I'm a female entrepreneur, and I know one of the issues that I've had is I have like a really strong personality. So I'm probably more in touch with my masculine side than my feminine side. So would you say you work with like both women? Because I feel like there are some like very timid, subtle women, and then you have like those like powerhouse women, but I could see how on both ends of the spectrum this is needed. So do you work with more, like one more than the other, or is it pretty even?
I would say it's pretty even, because the imbalanced expression of these energies, like you say, can come out either way. And it's also within different aspects of our lives as well. It shows up in different ways. So for me, there's no particular like presenting way it has to be, because to me it's about balancing the energies and coming into the empowered expression of those energies. And usually for both those scenarios, it's actually a woman needs to come into her empowered feminine energy first, because a lot of the time they can be either too much in their masculine, like you say, when they can burn out from that space. It can become like a wounded dynamic, or they can be in a wounded feminine space where they are like people pleasing and not confident in themselves and things like that. So to me, it's just about balancing the inner energies first. And usually whatever the expression is, it's about coming into the empowered feminine and having the inner masculine like support you rather than be controlling. So it's like a different experience when you have your inner masculine supporting you, rather than kind of controlling everything.
So how does one do that? Like, explain that process of how someone can achieve that.
So it depends really like what's coming up for them in their life, because it's all very individual. And so it depends what's presenting and what is happening for that individual person as to how they can come into their empowered feminine energy. But usually it's, so like if someone was in let me just feel how to break this down in a way that can be understood. Yeah. So the difference of the energies are that the masculine energy is like the doing, thinking, it's very forward moving, it's goal orientated, it's single focused, it's like quantity driven. And the feminine energy is much more journey orientated. It has diffuse awareness, so it's aware of the environment and surroundings, and it's like the opposite basically. And so if you're too focused on the goal, then you need to come back into enjoying the journey. And there's a sweet spot, and that's where you're enjoying the journey, where you're like okay and accepting of what is, where you're releasing judgment of what is, and you come into a space of relaxed, what I call relaxed arousal. And this applies with whether you're manifesting, whether this is in your sex life, whether this is in your relationship, because often there can be a sense of urgency to get to the goal, and then you're actually not enjoying the journey, and you're not allowing yourself to be with what is. And if you can release judgment around what is, then you can come into the space of really enjoying what is, whilst you're excited for what's to come, but in a relaxed way. So you're not pushing and forcing in that forward moving energy space. You're more in your feminine energy, where you're expressing and experiencing rather than taking loads of action and doing. So it depends how it's expressing for each individual woman, but that's how I would say if you're more in your masculine energy, it's shifting, doing an action, coming out of the space of you need to do something to get something, and into the space of responding, expressing, and experiencing, because that is what leads to you feeling the way you want to feel when you receive what it is you want to receive. Because often when we receive things from a imbalanced dynamic or a wounded dynamic, it never feels how we wanted it to feel. You can feel exhausted, or you can feel, it just wasn't as, it's never quite, it's just always not quite what you wanted. But when you receive from an empowered feminine way, you're leaning back and you're inspiring the masculine energy of the universe to come to you. So, and when that happens, it feels so much more nourishing. And so I don't know if that answered your question, because I went off on a tangent a bit there. I was just like,
no, it definitely does. So I think that both men and women, have to learn how to balance their masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah.
So I think it goes for both. So for the guys listening that are constantly in that go, go, go phase, they can also learn from this to learn to experience and be present in a moment and enjoy the journey. So I think that's really powerful for both men and women to understand that process. So how did you get involved in this? Like, what led you to do this work?
Yes. So I experienced the shadow aspects of men, money, power, sex. I've had quite a colorful life, shall we say, and I used to be a stripper, and I was a drug addict, and I was in the underworld, and for me it wasn't empowering. Like some women it can be, but for me it wasn't. It was coming from a space of seeking validation, low self-worth, and I basically experienced the shadow aspect of all of this, and I really didn't value myself. And then I got very, very sick, and it was my reproductive system that kept getting sick, because to me, I was in an imbalanced dynamic. I was selling myself, that area of my body, for money when I wasn't wanting to. And so there was a lot of physical like manifestations of that, like symptoms and things. And yeah, so I ended up going on a trip to Thailand, and I did a yoga course, and I had a spiritual awakening. And then I came back to the UK, and I studied naturopathy and herbal medicine and Reiki and all natural medicine for 5 years to heal myself. And then I came into the world of coaching and life coaching. I specialized in female sexual health as a herbalist as well. And then my own journey with my man, Rory, my divine love, that led me into the relationship aspect of things. And so for the past 5 years, I've really been nourishing and growing my business and really helping other women to step into an empowered space with their money, within their relationship, and with their sex life as well. And what you were saying just before that, I just wanted to touch on actually, because when you were saying about men needing to balance their energy as well, this is something that I really help women to inspire their man, like with their sex life. This is so important because a lot of women shut down because they are too much in the masculine energy, where it's goal orientated, it's wham bam thank you ma'am, it's a means to an end. For a woman, this becomes kind of monotonous, and also it can be traumatizing to, like, physically to her yoni as well, so like her vagina. And over time she can shut down. And when a woman can learn to inspire her man to honor her female body, and I teach them how to do that, like how to honor I call it your Shakti. And when he does that, when he learns to bring Shakti into the sexual space, he actually experiences expansive orgasm and more expansive sexual experiences as well, because it's such a limited expression of sex that we have been taught through the movies, through sex education. We've been taught this very limited, masculine, goal-orientated way of expressing. There's a whole other world. There's a whole other world to explore. And when a man feels inspired rather than criticized or wronged or blamed or shamed, when he feels inspired, and a woman can inspire that empowered masculine energy to come forth within him, he wants to please, he wants to provide, he wants to deliver, and also he gets to experience all the juiciness from that as well. So it's amazing.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so there's a few things I want to dive into.
Yeah.
So I know with your experience, you were doing something that internally you really didn't want to do. And I think that's really important for the listeners to understand. A lot of times when we have resistance internally, it can transform into physical ailments. So you pretty much were making yourself sick because you were at war internally, because you were doing something you didn't want to do. So I think that's really important for people to understand. A lot of times if you're working jobs that you really don't want to work, you're in relationships that you really don't want to be in, that can contribute to physical illnesses because our bodies are speaking to us. So it's really important that we tap in and check in to listen to our bodies because they're definitely teaching us something.
Yes, I absolutely love that. And that's something I definitely share as well. I call it your body guidance system, your emotional guidance system. Your body's always communicating with you.
Yes.
And there's a reason why, like if you're presenting symptoms, or if you're not feeling good, like this is one of the keys to empowered feminine living, is to really like own your feelings and to acknowledge your feelings and validate your feelings, because a lot of the time women can be very much giving and caregivers and people pleasers, and they kind of forget about their emotions and their feelings. And it's the same with men, but for a different reason, because they're taught not to feel, and so we have become very desensitized to our bodies, and it's so key to really honor that. And I know, like, when I was first starting out in business, you know, I was in a space of lack and I didn't have anything to show for my years as a stripper. And it can be challenging in the beginning to know how to go about doing that. Like, how can you honor your feelings when honoring it would mean something you don't believe you can do yet, you know? And it's just a case of like taking baby steps, and really just, as long as you have the awareness, that's the first step. And with awareness, you can start to shift things and you can start to focus on a preferred reality, you know?
Yes, I love it. And then you mentioned divine love. So for someone who may not understand exactly what that means, how would you explain that?
Yeah, so I think like there's a lot of different terms that kind of get thrown around. There's like soulmate, twin flame, boyfriend, partner, husband, like there's all these different terms. And the only reason I just want to say, the only reason I'm saying like a heterosexual relationship or whatever, that's the dynamic that I specialize in, just because it's what I'm like, what I experience. But obviously this can apply to any dynamic. But yeah, divine love, to me, it's like a highly conscious choice to be with each other. And it's whatever that expresses as. I mean, I speak to people who are in polyamorous dynamics, who are in open relationships, but divine love is really like, to me, it's all of that. It's all of it. It's a soul connection, it's a human choice, and it's where you're in a relationship with somebody who, it's a highly conscious relationship with someone. That's what I see divine love as. And also it can kind of take you by surprise, and like not necessarily be what you expect, because there's a lot of, it's like looking in a mirror sometimes, because a lot of reflection, and there's a lot of growth in that space when you're with your divine love and divine partner. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so you also mentioned a word that I'm actually not familiar with, Shakti. Am I saying
Shakti.
it right?
Yeah,
So,
Shakti.
so what is that? So I've never heard that specific term, so I'm sure the listeners are probably like, what is that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so in Tantra, which is like sacred sexuality, conscious sexuality, Shiva is the masculine, the god, and Shakti is the feminine, the goddess. So Shakti means goddess, feminine, divine feminine, empowered feminine, woman. So it's the feminine aspect, yeah.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
when I'm speaking about the more sexual side of your relationship dynamic, I use those terms rather than feminine energy. I'll say Shakti, because to me, there's a more sexual element to it, to that word, because it's associated with the sexual side of Tantra from the teachings I've been taught anyway.
Abundance Box is more than a subscription box. It's a movement. Not only are you sent spiritual goodies to your doorstep, it's a commitment to yourself to not settle, to live to your full potential and manifest the life that you truly desire. For more information, go to abundancehack.com/box to receive crystals, sage, therapeutic grade essential oils, guided meditations, and access to the private Facebook group to connect with other awesome members of the Abundance Box tribe. Join the movement, because life is meant to be abundant. I want to dive into some sex talk. So M&Ms, don't be shy.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to touch on is the importance of connecting with yourself towards your goals. So I think that there's a lot of people that are not actually fulfilled or pleased in their sex life. And I think that trickles over into other areas of life. You know, I definitely think that there's a link. If you are feeling unfulfilled and you're not pleased, or you have any shame or guilt around your sexuality, I think that affects your level of success and your goals. So can you touch on that?
Yes, definitely. So, okay, I don't know how like woo woo spiritual I can be here, but
You
I'm
can
just
go
gonna,
all the way woo woo. It's fine.
okay. Okay, so for me, there's been a direct link between my sexual healing and my sexual consciousness and my wealth consciousness. I believe it has something to do with the chakra system, because your root chakra is obviously your survival. It's like the 3D realm. It's the earth. It's also linked with your family, like your early belief systems, and yeah, so your root is very much linked to those things. Like survival is very much linked to money in this day and age. And to me, survival is never just about surviving, it's about thriving. We want to thrive, we don't just want to survive. And so to me, the root is about thriving. And then that's your yoni, and your sacral chakra, your womb space, that's to do with your creativity and your pleasure. That's where you create, that's where you're and you birth creation through these chakras as well. So that's where you create and you birth creation. And your most magnetic point, so we're magnetic beings, and so your most magnetic point as a woman is your cervix, and so it's where you can draw things to you. And I very much teach how, as a woman, when you're in your empowered feminine energy, it inspires, it is irresistible and magnetic to empowered masculine energy. And that's like the empowered masculine energy of the universe. So you can actually learn how to bring your desires to you. Like the universe will step up for you to bring to you and deliver to you. And I teach a thing called orgasmic manifestation, where you can actually utilize your sexual energy and those parts of your body. When you're nourishing those parts of your body and healing those parts of your body, you're opening up your channels of abundance and bliss, like we spoke about before, bliss, and your pleasure channels. And so that's going to, by virtue of the law of attraction, you're going to have more of that in your life, and you're going to be like a vessel for that. You're going to be more receptive and more open, and it's very much linked to your receptivity capacity. Like, yeah, so that's how I feel like your sexuality on an energetic level is connected, but also it's to do with your confidence as a woman, just your being as a woman. When you're shut down sexually, you lose this aliveness, and you lose your magnetism, and it can really cause you to feel small or play small. It can show up in other areas of your life when you're not nourishing yourself, your sensuality, your sexuality. It can really cause not just a shutdown from your physical pleasure or your sensual pleasure, but it can shut you down in all areas of your life, you know? So it's very much linked to that. And I have found through my like sexual healing journey, every time I've had a profound sexual healing or activation or experience, there'll be an influx of opportunities, you know, and an influx of money and clients. And so we are holistic creatures. We function holistically, and that goes on all levels, like spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, and sexual. So yeah, it's definitely interlinked. And I love how you feel that as well. You can sense that.
Yeah, it's really important for people to be aware of that. And I think there's a lot of women who have been in relationships for a long time, and sex or intimacy becomes more like a chore, you know,
Yeah.
and women are like, oh, here goes my husband again, you know, and, or not even husband, like even just in like long-term relationships, you
Yeah.
know, that fire dies. And I think that when you get to that point, it's really important to try to revive it because it is affecting other areas of your life. So if you had someone that's in a space of not being connected, like what are ways they can align those chakras or connect more with their partner or themselves? Because I know
Yeah.
orgasmic manifestation doesn't necessarily have to be with a partner. You
No.
can totally focus on that yourself.
Yeah. And that's key. Like this starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned earlier about the sexual energy dynamic and how a lot of the time, because we have only been expressing in the masculine energy sexually, it's very much like friction based sex. It's very much peak orgasm, like clitoral orgasm, if any, for a woman. It's ejaculation for men, and then it's done, right? That's masculine. There's nothing wrong with Shiva sex. Like that's exciting. That can be thrilling. That can be amazing sometimes. But when that's the only way that you are expressing sexually with yourself or with your partner, because it can be the same even with like masturbation. A woman can just be getting off and like just to get to the goal and finish. When that's the only way of expressing sexually, over time, it's not sustainable for a woman's flow of energy, but physically as well, like her yoni, it will become traumatized. The tissues within the yoni will constrict and harden, literally. The cervix will contract. It won't want to be touched. There will be they'll lose sensitivity. You can become numb or you can experience pain. And it's because of the overstimulation. And so when you start to bring in Shakti, so I teach like 14 keys to Shakti, and I'll share some of them now. One of them is just slowing down, slowing right down, like think slow, whatever you think slow is, slower, like a lot slower, because because there's so like to reawaken your pleasure pathways, because you become habitual in your pleasure pathways, and so often a woman will need a certain type of stimulation in a certain way in order to experience any pleasure at all. So what you need to do is start to expand your pleasure pathways. The only way to do that is to slow down first. And like you said, it's really, really important to practice with yourself first before anything, like to heal yourself. And I speak about how you need to have 3 things going on in your sex life with yourself and your partner. There needs to be intimacy, eroticism, and healing. So those 3 things. And if you're only like, usually there's this expectation of eroticism, and we leave out the healing, we leave out the intimacy. And so going back to your question, if a couple are in that space, then I would first be inviting her to do self-healing with herself. And I would be inviting her to slow down. There's so many different pleasure pathways. There's 63 nerve pathways to orgasm. There's at least 11 different types of orgasm.
Hold on. Yeah. 11 different types of orgasms?
Yeah. So even your vaginal opening is orgasmic. Like you can orgasm with.
Goodness. Where have I been? I think I'm aware of like 3.
Yeah, there's a lot more to the female anatomy than what we've been taught, honestly. Like we mainly hear about the G-spot and the clit, right? But there's your cervix. You can orgasm via your cervix. There's the deeper erogenous zones. There's the vaginal opening is exquisite. There is a lot of pleasure to be had. And I teach a thing called slow penetration. So you either do this with yourself or a partner, and you just take your time. And there's actually a lot of pleasure within stillness. So
Mm.
if with your partner, you, I teach a thing called plugging in. So you literally just, the yoni will sit the lingam, that's the penis, in, and it will be like very, very slow penetration, which can be orgasmic in and of itself once you've resensitized your yoni. And then just being still, and you allow the lingam to go soft and hard, and you will be amazed at how much pleasure there is just in that alone. Because it's not just a physical thing, there's sexual energy being communicating with each other. And so, yeah, there's so much I could say on this. There's so much I could say. Yeah.
So I heard, okay, so I know of vaginal, clitoral, and then I heard of O spot.
Yeah.
So like G spot, but there's a O spot. So I don't know if that's the
Yeah.
cervical one.
That's near. Yeah.
Okay.
It's near.
I'm learning so much today.
Yeah. And so you can actually become what's called full body orgasmic as well. And you can actually experience energy orgasm too. So being like full body orgasmic, because everything's interconnected. And so literally any part of your body can become orgasmic. And so it's just about resensitizing, and it's a real journey to go on. And I just want to say, like, for me, so my sexual healing journey, I experienced sexual trauma as a child, and I didn't acknowledge that until I was 31 years old. And so I've been on the journey the last however many years. I'm 36 now, so 5 years. And a lot of the journey to becoming sexually empowered for me and sexually expressed and sensitized was really challenging and not pleasant. And there can be a big fear around this. And this is where the whole intimacy thing comes in, because you need to be intimate with yourself first, and with your partner. A man has the capacity to hold space for all of your expression, whether that is crying in pain, or crying in pleasure, like crying in trauma release, like, or experiencing something ecstatic and wild, or experiencing shutdown and numbness. Like, a man can have the capacity to hold you, whatever your expression. And you also need to have the capacity to hold yourself through your own healing. And I teach a thing called de-armoring, and it's really, if you are shut down, once your yoni starts awakening, like if you're numb, you can first experience pain before you experience pleasure. Or if you're experiencing pain, you might experience numbness before you experience pleasure. And there's a lot of emotion that can come up with this. And yeah, it can be quite an intense journey. But if you're willing to go on that journey with yourself and with your partner, like, you don't need your partner to do the healing journey, but it is really amazing if they're open to that, because the healing that you can receive, like, from your partner, it's like they become this like amazing healing light in your like sexual space, and that's amazing. But yeah, it can be very intense. And I just, like, a lot of the time what can come up, women can be afraid of it, or they can think that it's strange or wrong, or there's expectation, like you're not supposed to cry if you're sexually touching yourself. It should feel a certain way and it should look a certain way. But you need to just like blow all that conditioning out and just come into a space of being very, very present with what is. And when you do, you'll find that's what leads to these like expansive, ecstatic experiences, when you really listen to your own body and really express what's there, you know?
Yes.
So
Oh my goodness. So powerful. So I know in my own journey, so right now I'm single, and when I kind of put out in the universe like what I want, I'm like, I want a conscious man, because I think that there's so many surface and shallow relationships where people don't really know each other. And honestly, maybe they're not aware of it because they don't really know themselves. And I love how you say hold space for yourself. So I always say hold space for friends and loved ones to come to you, but it's really important that you hold space for yourself. And the way that I explain hold space is without judgment, because we judge ourselves so much, so much. So it's really important that you not only hold space for your partner, but hold space for yourself. Allow yourself to experience, allow yourself to feel, because so much of what we do today is numbing, you know, scrolling on social media, drugs, alcohol, gambling. There's so many things that we do that is numbing. We don't know how to feel and allow ourselves to feel, and we want to dismiss those feelings that come up. But the only way you're going to experience bliss and, you know, full body orgasms is if you really allow yourself to feel. And sometimes the feelings that come up may not be pleasant because we are healing and we have stuff that we have to work through. So I absolutely love it. So we have to do like an episode just on like orgasmic manifestation and the different orgasms. Yeah, that'd be so awesome. But no, this is really, really powerful, because I think that, you know, we put sex or intimacy in this box, in this container, and it's just this, and it's kind of taboo to talk about. But people, I don't think, realize how much it shows up in every area of our lives. So it's really important to be in touch with that. And then also I want to point out, guys, slow sex. Stop watching the porn and thinking that you got to be like a jackrabbit.
So true.
Slow down. Even like she said, even if you think you're going slow, go slower.
Yeah. And this is so true, because this has been one of the key aspects of experiencing like deep bliss within like an expansive orgasm. It is, so you can go into the Shiva sexual flow and then come into stillness, then go into more Shakti flow, then come into stillness. So like, you know, like in yoga, how you'll do something and then you just lie and you be still for a moment, and then you carry on, and then you lie down, you be still. And like a major part of the healing and the activation comes from the stillness. And so it's not about like never being in Shiva flow, but it's about having balance and also experimenting, because one of the things that a woman needs is adventure, and for her to stay ignited, and for her to, because we're journey orientated, we love adventure. And so if you are, there's even adventure within stillness, is what I'm trying to say. And there's so much pleasure within stillness. And so it really does bode well for a couple to learn slow sex, and to learn how to, you play with the energies and you come into points of stillness throughout the sexual play. This is tantric sex. This is how people go for hours and hours and experience multiple orgasms and all these different types of orgasms within one sexual session, if you will. It's because they're honoring both the energies and they're taking moments of stillness as well. And actually for me, I'm what's called an energetic lover. So that's my kind of blueprint. I actually experience a lot of the time, more pleasure in just the energy flow than in any movement. Just because I'm very, very sensitive, empathic, and energy worker. So I'm very in tune with energy, whereas my partner is different to that. And so it's just learning about what kind of lover are you, and how can you both honor each other, because for the longest time, it is only the masculine energy that's been honored. And that's why women have shut down all around the world, and especially in a long-term relationship, because unintentionally, he's the one that's like traumatizing her yogi without realizing it. You know, it's not an intentional thing. They just don't know any better. And once a woman discovers herself, she can then inspire her man. It's not about teaching him, it's about exploring and sharing with him. because otherwise you can go into like a mother dynamic with him, and that can really emasculate him. So there is a balance around how you go about communicating these things. Yeah, because you have to be careful when it comes to sex to not emasculate your man, and to not be coming from causing him to feel not good enough or criticized, because that can really shut them down sexually. And men are very sensitive, surprisingly. So like more so than we think, but it's just in a different way. They have fears and they need to feel safe, but it's in a different way to what we do. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I know there's a lot of different ways you can communicate like your wants or needs or desires to your partner without making them feel bad. So rather than saying like, don't do this, it's more like, I love when you do this. So more encouraging than not, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any other tips?
No, that's really good. That's a really good point. Also, it is important to say if something is overstepping a boundary, or if something doesn't feel good, like if something really doesn't feel good, like of course you have permission to express that. But yes, there are empowered ways of communicating, and disempowered ways of communicating. I love what you just said. That's definitely like one of the best ways to communicate in a sexual dynamic, but also to have a conversation so that there's two ways you can go about it. There's the way where you agree that neither of you will take it personally if someone says no to something, and there's like no holds barred. You can just say whatever you want, and it's cool. But if there is some sensitivity, or you do that and you find, oh, actually you both didn't feel good doing that, then yes, it's about using positives, using this, like bringing him into your body with the way you communicate. So bringing him into your feeling space, expressing from your feeling space is key, rather than your thinking space, rather than trying to fix it for him or tell him what to do. You can say, this feels so good to me, or it would feel so good to me if yada, yada, yada. Like, oh, this feels so good. My heart feels so expansive right now. Or, wow, I can like feel my juices flowing, whatever it is that's coming through you. Like, and you bring him into your feeling space, which is the body. That's the feminine space. And he will respond really well to that. And men, they really like positive reinforcement, and like they know they're doing something right. They're going to focus on that. So yeah, you're right. That's one of the best ways to communicate. And even in just day-to-day communication, this is something I teach as well, because a lot of the time a woman can also be shut down because she's not feeling appreciated. She's not feeling seen in her life in general with him. Like she feels like he doesn't see her for the goddess she is. And it's often because of a breakdown of communication in day-to-day life. And so one of the keys to expressing in an empowered way within day-to-day life is also coming into your feeling space. And like we mentioned before, it's being aware of what does and doesn't feel good. That's the basis of it. And then you can just say to him, this doesn't feel good to me, this does feel good to me. And I teach a whole 10-step process to how to communicate with men. But yeah, it's about being in your feeling space and bringing him into your body, and that inspires that empowered energy within him and his empowered expression to come forth. And it's about not having an agenda and not trying to control him, not trying to dictate, not trying to get him to understand, not trying to convince him or justify yourself, because that's all masculine energy. That's all forward moving, and you're going to just push him away. If you come into your feeling space and you own your feelings and you express from that space, your energy's on you, so you're not pushing him away. He's not going to feel blamed or shamed or wrong. He'll be able to hear you, because it won't be all these details, because he's single focused, remember? So if you're like, blah, 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 he's going to just be like, whoa, it's too much. So yeah, then he'll be able to actually see you and hear you and honor you and step up for you. And that can really instantly start activating your sexual energy and your attraction to him again, because the dynamic has shifted so that you're in your feminine and he's in the masculine again. So that can start the magnetism. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. So I know you've given a lot of tips and a lot of value, but I want to wrap up with this. What are
Yeah.
3 tips for living an abundant life?
Oh, okay. So we have shared one of them, and I just want to say it again because I feel like it's really important. So the first tip would be to accept what is, like allow what is, accept and allow what is, and release. To do that, you need to release the judgment. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you release the judgment and you accept and allow what is, you start to even enjoy what is. And then you can be in the sweet spot. And then you can be excited for what's to come. So that would be my first one. It's just like release your judgment and shame around what is, and just allow what is, and like even come into the space of enjoying what is. Another tip would be to prioritize your pleasure above everything else. Like when you do that, when you put yourself first and you prioritize your pleasure, you're actually doing everyone else in your life a favor and everyone else in the world a favor. And you're going to attract more of that into your life, and you're going to open up those abundance channels when you are prioritizing your pleasure and living in alignment, making decisions based on what feels good. Okay, my third tip, let me just feel into this one. Third tip for living an abundant life. Expressing yourself, not being afraid to speak, to express, to shine your light, to share who you are, to express your needs, to express what you want. Expressing yourself, being fully expressed, and giving yourself permission to be expressed. Because I think so often we don't give ourselves permission to be expressed. We shut ourselves down and we dim our light because we're afraid of what other people would think, or we're afraid we're going to upset or offend other people. But it's so key. Your self-expression is so key for you receiving abundance in your life. So those would be my 3 tips.
I love it. I love it. So where can people find you online, or if someone wants to reach out about your services?
Yes, so I have a website. It's called Your Peachy Life. So that's my website, yourpeachylife.com. The place I'm most active is just on my Facebook page, which is Jacqui Lane. And yeah, I'm literally about to start my signature money program, which is called Empowered Feminine Premium. So that's starting at the end of the month. That's like a mastermind and training program. And that's all about women who are wanting to have premium programs in their business. And all the information for that's up on Facebook as well, and on my website. That's my next program that's happening. So yeah, those 2 places are the best place. I do have a YouTube channel as well, which is called Priestess Peaches. But Facebook and my website is definitely the best places to connect with me.
Awesome. So I will have the links in the show notes so you can go check her out. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing. We have to bring you back to talk a little deeper about orgasmic manifestation. And do you use or encourage yoni eggs, like the crystals?
Yeah, so yoni eggs and yoni wands as well. Like the wands, I've been really loving the wands right now, and teaching about how to use the wand properly, because there's a lot of misinformation around how to use a wand. So yeah, yoni eggs, yoni wands, and even just yourself and your awareness. So I would love to come back on and speak about these things. Like, I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about it.
Yes, I would absolutely love that. So we will get that on the calendar.
Yay!
All right. M&Ms, if you have any questions, go ahead and send your questions or comments, even if you want it to be anonymous, because I know this is a topic that makes some people uncomfortable. You can email us at connect@abundancehack.com. I will have that in the show notes. And until next time, love and light.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.